Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today will be the last live of this year. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all who tuned in throughout the year. And inshallah, 2025 is an even better year for us. Looking at the year that was, the indices did quite well. The Dow Jones, or the Boomer Index, as I like to call it, was up 12.8%. The Nasdaq was up 27% in 2024. The S&P was up 24%. And a lot of our positions did very well. I mentioned that I thought we'd go into the new year with Tesla in the 400s, and indeed it was. Tesla is at 403. And we did have generally a better day today in the market than we had yesterday, which is not really saying much. Everything was ready yesterday. But there was some recovery in the market. Let's hope that, January turns out to be not too bad. Now, in terms of news items to look forward to in the next week, well, on Thursday, Tesla is set to report its deliveries at 9 a.m. The company is set to report Q4 deliveries on Thursday, and analysts surveyed are expecting a record total of 512,000, although that would not be enough to bring the full year total up to Tesla's forecast. In its third quarter earnings report, Tesla said that despite ongoing macroeconomic conditions, it anticipated deliveries of slightly more than last year's 1.81 million. So I do think that we will get... my personal expectation is that we'll get a positive number from Tesla on Thursday. And who knows, that may set the tone for the stock for the coming few days. And, I do think that, generally speaking, there will be some profit taking in January that was postponed for tax reasons. But we should get a strong recovery, I think, near the Tesla earnings report, either before or after it. But we'll see. That's obviously contingent on the content of that earnings report. But I do think that it will be a positive earnings report as well for the company. That being said, what I know for sure is that the future is unknowable ahead of time. So keep that in mind. Dan Ives, who is a prominent commenter on all things tech and tech investing, mentioned that he thinks tech stocks will be up 25% in 2025 as the street digests a less regulatory environment under Trump, stronger AI initiatives, and a Goldilocks foundation for big tech in 2025. Now, as it relates to crypto, we did have a very strong year for crypto as well. If we look at Bitcoin, it was up 111% in 2024. Doge was up 250%, and Solana was up 85%. I'm going to share with you guys the projections of an analyst that I have some respect for later in this live. But before I do that, I'd like to share with you guys the movement, the activity that we're seeing in the options market. So for those who are unfamiliar, puts are people betting. When people buy puts, they're betting that the price is going to go down. When people buy calls, they're betting that the price is going to go up. And if we look at the volume of options on Bitcoin, and we look at February 28th, for example, so the options that expire on February 28th, we can see an outsized volume of puts with a strike price of 75,000. This is the most popular strike price for February 28th, which means that a lot of market participants are expecting Bitcoin to fall to 75,000 in the next 2 months. And there's, in fact, $177 million bet on this just in that one strike price. We also have a lot of volume around 70,000 with 150 million bet on that strike price. So that kind of tells you maybe the market is pessimistic. But if you look further into the future, and let's say September of 2025, you can see that the calls have the most volume, and the call strike price that has the most volume amongst calls is the call with the strike price at 300,000. And there's around $71 million bet on that strike price. So the market is telling you that in the short term, it is expecting a pullback. But if you extend your outlook beyond the first few months of 2025, then they're expecting, at least the options markets is suggesting this. We're expecting a strong reversal and all-time highs and a possible above 300,000 price for Bitcoin by the end of the year. Now, I think 300,000 is sort of a tail outcome. It's not in the middle of the normal distribution. I think in the middle of the normal distribution for possibilities in terms of price of Bitcoin, I would say around 200,000. That's the most probable, I think. And if we look at other popular strike prices for these call options, 200,000 is another very popular strike price for September of 2025, as well as 150,000. But the most popular strike price, again, is 300,000, which is, I think, quite remarkable. Now, let's go to the video that I wanted to show you guys so that you can hear from a source other than myself, and we can get additional perspective.
The 2025 outlook piece recently, where we talk about some price targets for Bitcoin and a few other major cryptocurrencies. Yeah. So with the BTC, our target is 210,000.
Excuse me, 210,000?
Yes. Yes.
Whoa. Okay.
Well, it's not.
Well, thank God the host didn't see the options activity where people are betting on 300,000 by September.
It's not that crazy. I mean, it's about 100% increase from where we are,
Okay.
and Bitcoin has done crazier things in the past.
Yeah, that's true.
Solana is $1,000 target price, and then for Ether, we predict in terms of a ETH to BTC ratio. So recovering back to BTC, our target is 210,000.
So Solana is actually, I mean, they're predicting a 5x on Solana. I think that might be a bit generous.
Excuse me, 210,000?
Yes. Yes.
Whoa. Okay.
Well, it's not that crazy. I mean, it's about 100% increase from where we are,
Okay.
and Bitcoin has done crazier things in the past.
Yeah, that's true.
Solana is $1,000 target price, and then for Ether, we predict in terms of a ETH to BTC ratio. So recovering back to 0.05 from current 0.03.
Okay.
Yeah, ratio.
So then the key question is how? Why?
Well, so there are a few things going on. So we arrive at our target price using what's called MV/RV ratio. MV stands for
Someone's been watching the channel.
market value. RV stands for the realized value.
I need to check if Peter Chung is a PIF member. By the way, if you're not a PIF member, make sure to become one. Link to do so is in the description.
Realized value is a value of a Bitcoin blockchain based on the most recent on-chain transaction price. So it's sort of similar to price to book multiples in equity.
Okay.
And then we calculate the we estimate the realized value for Bitcoin for next year and apply 3.5 times the multiples based on historical range. Yeah, and then for Solana, our benchmark is Ethereum network's peak valuation during the last bull cycle 3 years ago, which was around $500 billion in market cap, and that's about $1,000 in per Solana on a Solana basis. And then that's justified in our view because given the current level of institutional interest and then developer activity and also favorable supply outlook.
Yeah, they come in on this.
Our sense is that Bitcoin and other crypto is.
It's interesting here. He mentions institutional interest, supply outlook, developer activity. But that's not a good way to value an asset. It's interesting that when valuing crypto assets, cash flow is almost never mentioned. So yeah, this is one of the reasons that I have very extreme skepticism about most cryptocurrencies. Is that analysts that otherwise say very logical things tend to suspend logic when they're dealing with crypto assets for some reason. The value of an asset is the present value of future cash flows, or it's a function of the scarcity, which he sort of alludes to with the supply outlook. But Solana is not a scarcity play. Solana is a cash flow play, and so any estimation for the value of Solana has to be based on a projection of future cash flows. And without that in the conversation, I really can't take the valuations that seriously.
Also very much a liquidity beneficiary.
Yes.
So
this is kind of reminding me, to be honest, crypto is reminding me a lot of the .com bubble, where analysts started to invent new metrics for valuing .com companies other than cash flow, and it ended up crashing in a very big way. And that's why I say proceed in crypto with extreme caution, because there is generalized, I guess, suspension of logic that is going on amongst commenters.
my sense there is that you've also got a fairly positive outlook in terms of liquidity overall.
That's correct. Yeah. So Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are hypersensitive to liquidity conditions, and generally speaking, despite the recent hawkish guidance from the Fed on early December, the general direction is still loosening. That's what's implied in the market. So liquidity condition, we think.
This is very true. I've said this many times. Even if we get 2 cuts in 2025, which, by the way, I think there will be a surprise to the upside when it is revealed that we'll get more than 2 cuts in 2025. But even if we get two cuts in 2025, we're still on pace to get the same number of total cuts. It's just going to take a longer period of time.
Will get better next year. But even if for whatever reasons, Fed decides to reverse their decision, we have another kind of liquidity kick coming in from China.
Yes.
And then China is they account for a bigger, almost a twice larger portion of a global liquidity than the U.S. I think people often overlook that.
The percentage that they account for of global M2 money supply is just staggering. It's close to, it's less than half, but I think it's about 40%. Is that
correct.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, we don't feel it because of the capital control in China, and most of the liquidity usually gets trapped within the border of China. But, Bitcoin is a global asset.
And so I think that, as I've been saying on this channel, stimulus in China will have a very positive impact on cryptocurrencies. And despite a hawkish press conference at the last Fed meeting, the general direction for monetary policy is that of loosening, and that's why I remain bullish on the markets in 2025. And the last piece of news, kind of a random piece of news here, but it is, I think, an interesting take. You were better off investing with Madoff than in any of Chamath's SPACs. The last Madoff victim fund payout brings recovery to nearly 94% of the Ponzi scheme losses. So 94% of the losses were recovered. Can't say the same about Chamath's SPACs, but he seems to do very well on his All In podcast. Seems to be living his life just fine. All right. With that being said, let's go to questions. Assalamu alaikum, Muhammad. Just a reminder, guys, make sure to ring in the new year as a PIF member. Only a few hours to do that, but start 2025 right. Very excited about some of the smaller cap picks that we will be making, especially in the first few months of 2025. Do I agree that BTC could see 60K before it sees 200K? It's possible. I don't know. But certainly the options market is suggesting something around there is very possible. To be honest, if it goes down that much, I would be extremely happy because it wouldn't change my thesis. I still think it's going to 200K, but I'll be able to replicate some of the returns that we got with like Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin itself and other assets if I'm able to buy at those low prices. So I wouldn't mind it at all. Alaikum salam, Sami. Nice to see you. Yeah, that's kind of Sami, whether Bitcoin is halal or not is not an interesting conversation, to be honest. People typically argue against it, don't know enough about it in order to make the conversation interesting. I don't really take my my marching orders from CNBC. I think typically they tend to lean towards bearishness because I think that probably in terms of headlines, bearish headlines do better, and that's why like you'll see a lot of YouTubers with thumbnails "crash incoming." Oh, watch out! I tend to take the opposite approach. But yeah, listen, 2025 is the first year where Syrians will be free from Assad. So, I mean, that's a positive, and there'll be ripple effects from that positive event everywhere, I think. And so, yeah, I like to focus on the positive. And you may be saying, hey, Rakaan, why are you mentioning this very random geopolitical news event? Well, because it has become clear to me that some people get very upset when I mentioned that Assad is gone, because secretly they were, hoping for him to stay, but they can't say that because they're embarrassed. So I like to remind them that Assad is gone, and I'm very happy about that. Salam Rashad, nice to see you. numerous opinions about BTC, and they all have some bullish outcome. The question is when. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think most people who are in the know are bullish about BTC. There's various opinions about when it will reach what price, but if you just buy and hold and ignore the noise, I think you'll be just fine. Palantir is probably in the running for the least comfortable stock, in my view, so I just ignore it. Hey, Salam Abdullah, nice to see you. Yeah, there are a lot of companies that are posed to benefit from tariffs. And I would say probably, lithium producers that are based in North America may benefit a lot. Hint, hint. I think it's possible Dogecoin gets to the dollar mark, but I think it would be on the tail end of outcome distributions. Assalamu alaikum, brother Nabil. Yes, we're still avoiding MicroStrategy. No, I'm Muslim. I follow the Quran and the Sunnah. And so that's my mazhab. So if you enjoyed this live, then leave a like. Become a PIF member if you aren't a PIF member already. And until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.